Hello.
Hi MG, how you going?
Oh, mate. It's like I've never been more organized for a podcast in my life. Like legitimately, I've got like my notes, which I don't usually do. I've got a big, beautiful light, the microphone, and then you get started and you don't even have your freaking ear things in, so I can't hear you. How are you, my friend?
I'm very well. Now, my son is whippersnippering, so I'm not stopping him at the moment because I didn't know if you're going to be on time or anything. So as soon as we're ready to go, I'll go out there and say to him, we're ready to go, because whippersnippering and my son as a 22-year-old, to get him to do anything around the house is quite extraordinary. So I don't want to stop him in mid-flow.
Look, I've got three young boys. I've got a 2-year-old called Jack, which I know you've got a Jack as well, and I've got a
Yeah.
Harry who's 4 and an Archie who's 7. So like I'm right in it. In the whole, like every afternoon, it's a big screaming fight to do anything. We with these, unless there's anything that you needed to share before we got started, we just go.
Okay.
I'm just big on just real conversation and
Perfect. Well, if you can't hear the whippersnipper, let's just go then.
mate, not at all, not at all.
Okay.
Look, I wanted just to firstly start by saying, oh my gosh, by saying thank you. The first sentence I say, and I almost cry. What you're doing is such a beautiful thing, Gus, and I know that you know this, but I just got through your Man Up series, and it just really hit my heart, mate. And I live in Coleroy. I run mental health workshops and events, and I believe in so many of the things that you do. And I also suffer from depression. And seeing the work that you're doing is not just inspiring, but it's changing my life. I haven't been to a workshop. I haven't contributed a $1 to Gotcha for Life, but what you are doing is just massive, and you'll never know how much it does touch people. And just coming from someone like myself, I'm just a random dude, I just wanted just to say from the bottom of my heart, my friend, thank you.
MG, thank you. That's very, very kind of you. And I appreciate you being so vulnerable with me. And, I love the fact that I'm having a chat with you now. So I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. Thank you. The first thing I wanted to speak about is the brave face. I feel like we all put on this brave face. Doesn't matter whether you suffer from depression, anxiety, panic attacks, or if you're just a normal average Joe, just battling through life. What is your best advice for someone who is suffering, who is putting on that brave face day in, day out, and just hanging on to their pain and hardship?
Yeah, I suppose that there's a part of me that says we need to put on the brave face at times, because the world is a really difficult place, and we do need to take that deep breath at some stage and muscle up and do it. But there's plenty of other times where you can be vulnerable, like you just were. I was on another podcast this morning where I was very vulnerable. I'm vulnerable with my friends. Putting on that brave face it's sort of, brave is the wrong word, because brave's got this sort of mystic way of saying it's positive and upbeat and so forth. What it really is that we're putting on a disguise, of who we truly are. So what I've always done with Gotcha for Life is try to keep it as simple as possible, MG, and actually say, rather than putting on a brave face with everyone, you can put on a brave face with most people, some people, but find someone where you can be truly open, honest, and vulnerable with. And that's really the key, finding that person who has got you for life, that person you can talk to, warts and all, about absolutely anything, without any thought of judgment and without any thought of people thinking this is all a bit weird and strange, So it's not about bursting into tears every 5 minutes and having a deep and meaningful conversation every time we talk, but it means that we do have that person we can talk to. And it also means we've got the emotional muscle to have that conversation when we need to. And at the moment, way too many of us are putting on that brave face and thinking, you know what? I'm dealing with everything. She'll be right. This is just what life throws at you. No. Of course, there's times we need to do that. Resilience, of course, is an important thing. But build that emotional muscle within you so you can have that conversation when you need to. That's about being human. That's about being real. And then people that get that, you're that for them, they're that for you. And all of a sudden you're building this beautiful village of people that have this really deep emotional connection with each other, where you can totally be real. And that's when it's not exhausting to actually live your life. You're actually just living your best life. You know how exhausting it is to put that brave face on? every single day. And I speak to many men and women and everyone in between who are exhausted because of it. And I've spoken to over 1,000 people that have tried to take their life in the last couple of years, and thank God they've failed. And they are not wanting to die, but they are exhausted. They're in pain. They've just got this narrow, dark focus, and the only option that seems to be left to them is to take their own life. But they don't want to die. They treated the moment they let go of the bridge, the moment that they took that extra tablet and a swig of vodka, they automatically went, no, I don't want this to happen. So it's about building your village around you where you can talk about absolutely anything whenever you need to. So you never worry alone. And if you don't worry alone, then you're more likely to be able to cope with the type of stuff that life throws at us. And that really is, I think, the most human thing that we can do is just by being human. What you did at the start of the podcast, showing that emotion, you showed human. And most of the time when people cry in front of me, they apologize. And I say, don't apologize, because you're being real. It's the best possible compliment you can ever give me is by you being able to go, I feel safe enough with this guy, even down the Zoom call, to actually have a proper conversation. It's not going to be BS. So MG, that is a long answer to what is a tough question.
Well, look, this podcast is called Real Life with MG, and I like to explore real people doing real things because of what I've been through, because of this brave face that I refer to, that I've put on for so many years. So I've got a friend of mine called Matthew Caruana. I'm not sure have you heard of him?
Yep. Is he the footy player?
No, he's not. So
okay.
You've got to look this guy up. So he tried to take his own life at 16.
Yep.
And he was a misunderstood 16-year-old, tried to take his life, and he's ended up in a wheelchair. He's now running these mental health events out of schools. He's got me along to do a talk with him and stuff. And he is the most beautiful soul you'll ever meet.
Okay.
Now, the reason I bring him up is he speaks about this thing called mental fitness. Now, I'd never heard of mental fitness. I've always been mental health and so on and so forth. And then coming across you and what you speak about this mental fitness thing. Can you explain what you mean by mental fitness?
Of course. If you talk about mental health, I think it takes you to the bottom of the barrel, firstly. And then secondly, is that getting loud now? My son doing the whippersnipping, or is it okay?
Mate, we're good. I can't hear a thing. So as long as it's not distracting you,
that's fine.
We're good. We're good.
So mental fitness takes you to the bottom of the barrel. It makes you think it's someone else's problem. Whereas if you talk about mental fitness, just like you talk about physical fitness, then it gives you a mark out of 10 where you can work towards getting better. So that's why I actually went to a couple of workshops with some ex-soldiers, and I spoke to them about mental fitness, and they love that particular word. And they went, you know what? So that's why I started using it. And I love the fact that other people are using it now as well, because it gives you a positive thing to think about with your mental fitness. We talk about mental health, everyone goes straight to a negative. Whereas you talk, you know what? My mental fitness at the moment is about a 4 out of 10, but I'm working on it. I'm doing some meditation. I'm talking to a counselor, and I reckon I'll be a 6 or a 7 by the end of the month. That's a positive conversation. They're the conversations we need to have now, rather than, I've got some mental health issues. People automatically go, oh, what does that mean? I'm not quite sure if you can do your job as well as you should. And are you managing things as well? No, just like your physical fitness, I can work on it. There's exercises. I can go to a gym. The gym for mental fitness is you and I talking now, our listeners, listening to this podcast, going for a walk with a mate, having a conversation of gravity. So we need to normalize this conversation. If you talk about fitness rather than health, then I think it makes everyone feel it's more normal.
I love it. I'm a personal trainer by trade. So it's what I've been getting people physically fit for 10 to 15 years. Right. And, people always speak to me now that I'm a mental health guy. I try and help people with their without diagnosing people like you've got depression, you've got, I steer from that. I just help people try and live happier lives by incorporating these things like exercising. Like if my mental health is bad, if my mental fitness is bad, I know why. I've been drinking too much alcohol. I haven't been seeing my mates. A big reason why you do what you do is because of suicide. I've read all about your story and I've watched your story, and I know that you had a dear friend who ended his life sadly. And this is obviously where Gotcha for Life stemmed from. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's true.
But for me, I want to just quickly tell you about an event that I ran, and I've got a question. So
Sure.
I ran an event for Are You OK Day 2 years ago. It was just after the first lockdown, and it was 10 blokes in a room together. There was a TV presenter, professional athletes, your average Joes, let's say, a whole range of different people. And the event started with me expressing my vulnerability, sharing my story. And then we went around the room, and every bloke got the opportunity to say their name, why they're there, and one tie they have with mental health. So I said, look, if you could just say, my name's Bob, I'm here because you forced me to come, I've got no mental health ties. But do you think that's how it went? No. Absolutely not. They're going around the room. One of the guys had lost two of his best mates to suicide, and one of his friends was actually in the room, and he never even knew that. It shows that what you're doing at Gotcha for Life, these events that we put together are so important. But Gus, my question to you is how do we lower these suicide rates? It is the stats are too much. We're losing friends. We're hearing these horrible stories of people who are fine that aren't fine and end up ending their lives. What do we need to do to lower these rates? I know it's a huge question, but if you have a few basic points that can help people understand what we need to do.
Yeah, MG, look, it is a huge question, but that's exactly what Gotcha for Life was built on, off the back of the Man Up program. And Man Up really was my sort of journey, if you like, of challenging masculinity in this country, and why I lost my friend who, seemed to have everything. He ticked all the boxes, if you like, happily married, 3 children. He killed himself on the night that his third and final child finished the HSC. So he had a big circle in his diary saying, well, that's it. My kids are educated. I'm out. He had status inside of work, status outside of work. He had everything from the outside, but no one knew. And the 1,200 people at his funeral the week later, all of us asking each other, going, did you know? Did you know? Did you think he had a problem? He seemed to be the guy that had all the answers. And in fact, we used to go to him for personal and business questions because he always seemed to have the right answer. He seemed to have a solution to anything. So that's, I suppose, was the start of my journey on why we lose so many blokes. And the stats are horrific, like 7 blokes a day, 2 women a day, and we have 65,000 attempts a year. That's one every 28 seconds. You and I have been chatting for 15 minutes. That's 30 people in Australia who phoned the ambulance and said, can you help me, in the last 15 minutes? So it proves that the problem is huge. That was before the pandemic. We've had a slight decrease, actually, since the pandemic. Came down 5%, 170 people less, but still over 3,000 people, more than double the road toll, take their own life every single year in this country. So to me, it's the biggest conversation we should be having. And that's why I do all these podcasts. That's why we do the work that we do, and why we, fundraise millions of dollars and give it away to anyone that works in suicide prevention, because prevention is the key. And to answer your question, we have to educate Australians, boys, girls, and everyone in between, however you particularly see yourself. We need to change what it takes to be that person, and that perception and that stereotype. Because for years we've been told that men are just meant to man up and get on with it, and the girls are meant to do, support the boys and all that stuff. The world has moved on. The world has changed. The world's a much better place now for everyone. So let's learn the new set of rules. And that basically, for me, is having that opportunity to sit in workshops and to learn from people about what it takes to be a man. What are the new rules? And can I change from the old rules to the new rules now that I'm 53? Absolutely. My last 5 years have been so much better for me. I'm a better husband, a better father, a better friend. I'm a better person because I've got out of my bubble, the old school bubble, and I've actually started to learn and to put myself out of my comfort zone, get myself out of control, and actually challenge all those stereotypes that I grew up with and what my father grew up with. So slowly but surely, the generations are going to be better. You're much younger than me. My son is 22. His generation, my grandson, hopefully will be at a point where eventually they'll go, oh, it's absolutely fine to talk about your feelings. That's not a weak thing to do. In fact, that's the bravest thing you can do. The bravest thing to do, to actually walk up to someone and tell someone how you feel, rather than bottle it up and walk away and never talk about it. So we need to change that. It's going to take time. But the absolute one thing you should do, and all your listeners should do, is start today. Find the people in your life that you love and adore and you cannot imagine living without. Text them, FaceTime them, phone them, email them, write them a letter, however you want to communicate. Connect with them and say to them, I love you, I miss you, I cannot wait to see you soon, and you're my absolute heart and soul. And let that go out to the world and let them understand how important they are to you. And let's start building some really solid villages around us of people that totally get who we are and what we're on this planet for. And the more you have of that, the more these little villages all work out, they'll all end up being closer together, and we will have a much better, kinder world than we have at the moment.
Yeah, I love it. And everything you're saying resonates so highly with me. You mentioned you feel like you're a better dad since you've been doing this work. For the parents
you'll
out
be too,
there,
MG, your kids are quite young, but you keep on this path, they're going to be looking at you going, my dad's the example of what a man is today. He loves he's not playing up on mum. He's kind, he's cuddles, he's available to me. He comes to my sport. He's there at parent teacher night. That's what a real man is. That's what it's all about. And we can only do it through action. We can talk about it till the cows come home, but we need action. And what you're doing with your podcast and how you live your life, how everyone that works in this mental fitness space is doing, we're all building a different way of looking at things. And that can only happen if we're consistent in our behavior and we continue to do action, not just talk about it.
Look, I wanted to ask you about what your best advice would be to us parents for our kids, so we can, create a happier world and a more comfortable world as we get older. And I guess you just answered that question there. Just kind of show up as the good human being that you are, right? Is there anything else that you'd add?
You know what the word is, MG, for 2022? Authentic. Because kids can see through it. Kids can see through the BS. They get it. The kids are looking at you, your partner, grandma and granddads, aunties and uncles, nephews, the people you bring in, your Gotcha for Life crew that come over and have a few beers with you. They're looking and going, I love my dad. My dad loves that guy. So that's the type of guy that I should be hanging out with. They're listening to everything. They're hearing everything. It's a huge responsibility, parenting, and it comes without a license. You know what I mean? So it's a really important thing to get that right. And it doesn't mean you're perfect, but it means that you're honest and authentic. And I remember saying to my son, Jack, who's now 22, when I started this whole journey, he was mid-teenage years. And I just had this really open, honest conversation with him. I said, mate, I don't have all the answers. I'm just doing the best I can, but I promise you I love you and I'll do whatever I can to keep you safe. And then my two daughters behind him, as they were growing up, I said the same thing to them. And our relationship is so much better because I showed vulnerability. I led with vulnerability. I didn't lead with what my dad used to lead with, which was it's my way or the highway. I know more than you, and that's just the way it is. That's just not the way these kids are programmed anymore. They're so connected with these things, with these mobile phones, that they're getting information all the time, continually getting stimulated, continually up and down. So much different to what we were doing when we were growing up. So we need to treat them differently to how our mum and dad treated us. And that takes a little bit of guts to be vulnerable. It takes a little bit of guts to stand up and go, you know what? I'm not quite sure what to do here, but I love you and I'm going to show how authentic I am, and we'll get through it with love and authentic ways of looking at things.
What about us, like those parents who do suffer with their mental health? Like there's your son, Jack. It got me really emotional watching when you went to his school. That was Jack, right? Yeah. That was that son. He referred to you as loud, upbeat, energetic, positive, I mean, we're not all like that. What would you say to the parents who are struggling with their mental fitness?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the first thing is that most of us are, most of us aren't a 10 out of 10 in terms of our mental fitness. So don't think about it as an issue. It's just something that you can work on. Something, and of course there's a whole lot of scales there. I'm not talking about the people that have real mental illness issues, but people that can work on their mental fitness and get themselves out of their comfort zone a bit and lead with some vulnerability and move from a 4 out of 10 to a 6 out of 10. I'm talking about those sort of people, and people that are a 6 and a 7 that can move to an 8 and a 9. At the end of the day, everyone's got their own individual situation. But if you're open and honest with your kids at the right age, you don't want to be throwing this stuff at them at too young. But if you're open and honest with them and say, hey, daddy hasn't got all the answers here. He's working on himself at the moment. I'm talking from a dad's point of view, and mum's supporting me. And I just, all you've got to know is that I'm getting the best support possible, and I'm here for you. And I love those type of conversations aren't had very often around the dinner table in Australia, all around the world, actually. And I think we need to have more of those type of conversations. Or if you don't want to sort of burden your kids with it, that particular chat, perhaps right now, tell them at the right age that this is what mum and I have been dealing with, and we've done a really good job with it. Sometimes we haven't, but hey, we're still here and we're battling away. Showing kids that life is not all unicorns and Disney movies is okay.
I love it. I love how much more normal it is to speak about our battles these days. And if I go for a beer with my friends, it's a bit more normal for us to go, what's really been going on. It's sad that it kind of takes 2 or 3 beers to get into it some of the time, but I mean, I feel like if that's what is needed for that moment in time, then that's what's needed. I wanted to ask you about your transition from like breakfast radio to Man Up to Gotcha for Life. Was that a hard transition to make? And what did it look like? Obviously you're a popular figure, right? I mean, and now you still are, you're probably even more popular, but you're a popular figure in your breakfast radio, but you've obviously traveled down a path that is in your eyes more important, perhaps.
Yeah. I mean, MG, for me, I must admit it was a job to start with. I wanted to do this job. I wanted to salute my friend. I wanted to find out why he did what he did. About 15 days into shooting, we did 65 days shooting for Man Up. I just went, this is so much more than a job. This could be my life's work. And I'd been doing Brekkie Radio for about 10 years, I suppose. And I remember doing the Man Up program and it launching and doing so well. And everyone was like, wow, this is something, this could save lives one day. And then people were coming up to me and saying, you saved my life. I watched this program and giving me hugs. And you're like, oh, wow, this is real. And then I went, should I just be an ambassador for Are You OK Day or Movember or Beyond Blue? And I went, no, I think we could do something that goes along really well with those guys, but actually simplify the conversation, talk about mental fitness, talk about finding that one person who's got you for life, and just simplifying the whole conversation, because mental health was getting a bit of a bad rap and it was being used as excuses for people's bad behavior and a whole lot of stuff. So I suppose I transitioned from Brekkie Radio into running Gotcha for Life pretty quickly. My accountant certainly wasn't happy, MG, I tell you. Going from Brekkie money to running a non-for-profit is not a good decision if you're a young person with a young family. But I suppose I'd had 10 years of Brekkie, so I was able to do it for a few years, and then I kept up with my media, so that gave me an opportunity to keep sort of being out there. And then it became even bigger, Gotcha for Life, than anything I ever did on Triple M. And then, of course, the pandemic came and everyone then went, right, I need some answers on what it takes to get through this. And we were able to be there for them. We were able to pivot and go from face to face to what we're doing now, the virtual experience that everyone's used to now. So the last couple of years have taken Gotcha to another level, millions of dollars fundraised and given out to people that work in suicide prevention. And I actually see myself now as someone that runs Gotcha for Life and does radio in the afternoons on Triple M as a bit of a balancing act. But my main role is Gotcha for Life, getting the suicide rate to zero, and doing that through education, through workshops and facilitators going out there and normalizing having conversations outside of banter.
And how do people get involved? Obviously, people listen to this and go, I love what this guy's about. Do you have any workshops that are coming up that people can attend? Or
look, Gotcha for Life, gotchaforlife.org, MG, is the best spot. We have all our workshops that are coming. We do one a month around the country for free for guys and girls. We have Tomorrow Man and Tomorrow Woman now. We've got Man Anchor, which you probably know Steve Gamble from the Collaroy area, that we look after full time now in terms of funding him, through the help of Head Above Water, which was, been a great fundraiser for us over the last few years with Andrew Ward. So, yeah, we've actually got, I think, 19 facilitators now working every single day in every state and territory of Australia. So it's taken a while, but I want to get 100. You know, it's going to take time and money and effort, but we'll get there. Slowly but surely building up a set of facilitators, guys and girls who are really good at doing this stuff, because as you know, it's so emotional. It's not just a job. It's you know, you live and breathe. You do your chat with the school, and as you're walking out, one of the kids will walk out with you, or one of the staff members will walk out with you and start telling their story. And that's that moment where you know you've touched someone, and you have to then be really present in that moment to make sure you give them the time and effort to make sure that they're respected, because they're telling you something perhaps they've never told anyone else. So it's a really emotional and very time-consuming work, which is why it's hard to find the right people to be these facilitators. But slowly but surely we're building it, and a lot of people coming to us and wanting to support us. And the best thing, MG, is putting on an event for us is great. Like the Coal Classic was on the weekend, and a guy went, "Love what you do, Gus. I'm going to raise some funds." And nearly $60,000 later, wow. He swims a kilometre swim, but he's got this team of people wearing his Fusion was his company with Gotcha for Life on it. And he's in there and he's rallying the troops. And I'm able to bring Channel 7 down because of my contact. So we have a chat with him on sunrise in the morning, and then he swims, and then we have a barbecue afterwards. And it's just out of people's thoughts, turning it into an action, and then knowing that 50 to 60 grand is paying for a facilitator. It is every $40 of that is someone sitting in a workshop that wouldn't be able to sit in it otherwise. It's just action that goes with the thought, which is the absolute key. So anyone that's got those type of things, we've got people at the moment about to swim across the channel between France and England. The Barefoot Dutchman, a couple of months ago, walked barefoot from Cairns to Sydney. Every single weekend there's something going on, a barbecue or some type of event, and people are supporting Gotcha for Life. And believe me, MG, it's extremely humbling.
And I think a major part of that isn't just what you're doing, it's who you are. And I think that people are attracted to that. And the smiles that you see on your Instagram and stuff is the real person that you are. So thank you for your time. If there are facilitator roles opening up anytime soon, I'd love to put my hand up and apply. So I will just let me know.
Hey, MG, you'd be perfect for it. It's a full-time gig. It's very emotional. I'm not sure if you want to take it on with your 3 little ones and your missus, but at the right time, mate, you'd be the perfect person, because, you know, without blowing your trumpet, you know, you look very manly. You look like school kids would look at you and go, "Hey, I want to look like that guy one day." And if you're sitting there showing emotion, if you're sitting there showing that being vulnerable is actually brave and hard to do, and you're happy to do it, that's a fantastic lesson for those kids, you know, at the back of the class to look at and go, it's all right to look like him and to be vulnerable and to show emotion and to cry. Like, they're the type of actions that we need young Australian men to see. And we need to see that with the girls, with the Tomorrow Women classes as well. You know, women that they want to be being vulnerable, all of a sudden it takes away any issues. You go, you know what? If he's doing it, I'm doing it. And that's enough sometimes for people just to click and to go, you know what? I'm going to tell someone how I truly feel. I'm not going to worry alone. And I'm going to make my mental fitness the best it can be. So you're a good man, MG, and very, very nice to meet you. And when I see you in Collaroy, let's have a big hug, brother.
100%. Thank you so much, Gus.
No worries, MG. Have a good day.
See you, mate.